Welcome on Texas football. Time for State of the Program. Each and every week, Gerry Hamilton, myself, as well as CJ Vogel, join in to talk about where Texas is and where Texas is going from a 30,000-foot view. Adam Lowy of the Lowy Law Firm sponsors this each and every week. Keys to success for this Texas football team. CJ Vogel, I'm going to start with you and talk about one of the big ones that we think is going on. The Texas pass offense and pass defense has carried this team early. We are now a quarter of the way through this football season, believe it or not, a quarter of the way through regular season. Texas doing particularly well stat-wise in two specific ways. Go for it, CJ.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, what you expect for Texas in the Big 12, right? Is that pass-heavy offense, and you need a defensive secondary to play, catch up in that regard as well. Moving to the SEC, and you're starting to see that transition in the SEC as well to it being more pass-heavy, kind of spread the football out, go five wide, get four guys out in the formation and throw the football around. It's no longer the, let's get 12 and 13 personnel out there with multiple tight ends and a fullback and ground and pound. It's changing. So this bodes well for where Texas sits right now. Of course, you look around at some of the other coordinators in the conference with Kalen DeBoer and Lane Kiffin and what Eli Drinkowitz and his staff are doing, up in Missouri. They're throwing the football all over the place. And right now, Texas is very well suited on both sides of the football to play this new era of SEC football of the pass game, right? They're top 20. They're one of four teams, Bobby, that is top 20 in pass defense and pass offense right now, joining Ohio State, San Jose State, and Miami, Florida. So a heck of a start right now. I know that we've talked about it in the sense that you have 5 interceptions on the season, 4 of which coming from your secondary. Ethan Burton getting that interception on the screenplay there as well bodes well for what your defensive line will be able to do. We'd love to see the pass rush get after the quarterback a little bit more, 4 sacks through 3 games. But at the end of the day, teams are not, being able to achieve those chunk plays in the passing game right now. And that's a big win for the Texas defense. Communication's there. Football IQ is there. If that transitions into SEC play, Texas will be very well suited whenever conference play comes rolling around.
Hey, Gerry, I had this, the stat that CJ just quoted, by the way. Texas is one of only 4 teams that are in the top 20 in both passing offense and passing defense. Texas, Ohio State, San Jose State, Miami. Texas ranked number 10 overall in passing offense, 342. Number 18 overall in pass defense. CJ, one of the things that Rod and all of us have talked about also is the ability to play complementary football. A good pass offense with a good pass defense probably allows you to play that complementary style of brand of ball. What do you think about that, Gerry?
I will say this, being 100% real, the defense number, they haven't played against. That's kind of the deal there. Offensively, though, Michigan's really good on defense. I don't know if Michigan's going to go 8-4, 7-5 because their offense is in a world of hurt, but defensively, they're full of NFL players. And that is carried over for me. In the Michigan game, what made me so impressed with Texas pass offense is you hit them in the short game with the receivers and running backs. You hit them in the intermediate game with the receivers and tight ends. You hit them in a vertical hit shot with Isaiah Bond. You had Silas Bolden, maybe had a step, didn't connect, but that was a tough throw too to connect on all the time. But Texas against Michigan hit passes at all 3 levels. And that was a defense that's as talented as any Texas will play. I'm not saying they're going to be the best statistically because if Michigan's offense continues to stumble, that defense will stumble with them a little bit over time. But talent-wise, they're as good as you've seen. So but the Texas defense, I think they're vastly improved. Makuba, the communication, all of it. And I think they're vastly improved. But this is also a good thing for the schedule. Who's out there that's going to really – they don't play Ole Miss. They don't play Kalen DeBoer. They don't play Josh Heupel. They don't play Eli Drinkwitz. Oh, Oklahoma does. Good luck with that because you have Texas too. You have the 5 best offensive minds in SEC. But Texas doesn't play any of those teams that could challenge you through the air consistently. Schedule lines up for Texas to remain high in that ranking all year defensively. I'll say that.
That's one of the reasons why Texas right now, according to ESPN, is in the 90th percentile, 90% chance right now, according to ESPN, of Texas making the college football playoff. I think it's just amazing that we get that number so early. All right, we went over this prior to discussion, and the things that we circled were pass offense, pass defense, elite quarterback play really is part of that too. Texas also, the other reasons we think that Longhorns have shown so much success, Sark's effectively getting the ball to speed and in space right now. That's a big one. The stout offensive line has been key. Playmakers on D, that's been huge. And, I think the other one is this success in the red zone. People don't realize this because it just hasn't been talked about. But last year, Texas was one of the lowest, 20 or 30 teams in the country in converting red zone opportunities into touchdowns. Right now, Texas is through 3 games. Texas has entered the red zone 15 times and scored 14 touchdowns. That's insane level of productivity for that many trips into the red zone. Let's talk a little bit about that and what we think has happened that's allowed Texas to be a little bit better. I'm going to start with my idea on it. I think it's quarterback play. I think Sark is trusting Quinn more in the RPO game inside the red zone. And then he's also getting he's getting the guys in space and throwing it to an Isaiah Bond in a one-on-one setting, Matthew Golden in a one-on-one setting. What do y'all think a little bit? Is it just trusting Quinn? Is it getting guys ball in space, whether it's Jaden Blue, whoever, or is it a mix of all of those things?
I'm a mix, and I think and I agree with you, but I think offensive line is as big as anything for me because they ran the ball in the red zone against Michigan. Did they run the ball in the red zone effectively last year against the best opponents they played? I don't know.
Not in the red zone. Not in the red zone.
Not in the red zone. That's a big deal for me because that means a defense doesn't know where it's coming from. And the other thing I'll say is, like, Xavier Worthy's a tremendous player and a tremendous big play player. Is Matthew Golden a better receiver in the red zone, though? I mean, Matthew Golden's really good in the red zone. Quinn trusts him immensely in the red zone. So I think quarterback play, I think offensive line. Before the season, I said if the offensive line, if Texas can run the ball in the red zone, it's easier for Sark to call plays. And I do believe that's the case for any play caller, not just Sark. If your offensive line is winning in the red zone in the run game, then, man, you can do whatever you want. You can roll the quarterback against Michigan and Matthew Golden's in the right spot. If a team's worried about you running the ball on them in the red zone, it's amazing how much more wide open those receivers get to be in condensed spaces.
You're right about Matthew Golden. I mean, he's just a bigger target than Xavier Worthy. Presents a little bit bigger issue. What do you think, CJ? Is it just the offensive line? Is it Quinn? A mix of everything? I will say I think it's a little bit of everything, but I think my biggest thing is I think it's actually putting more on Quinn in the red zone. He's allowing him to throw into tighter windows. What do you think, CJ?
Yeah, I think so. I think that in the sense that there's more trust with Sarkisian, right? And that dates back to Quinn being on campus for his 3rd year, but also in the spring, right? We heard Matthew Golden was a guy that Quinn liked to go to in these situations. Then in the summer, it was, now he's getting more familiar with Isaiah Bond. Ryan Wingo's coming along. You've got guys now that you trust in that area. And, you look at the one-on-one win routes by Matthew Golden, by Isaiah Bond. You didn't see that a whole lot at times, right? You would see it every now and then with, Xavier Worthy winning a kind of a post corner against Kansas State. You saw it with the whip route against Iowa State, but it wasn't a consistent theme. And I think that's a more so going to the trust that he has in Quinn this year, to your point, Bobby, as well. I mean, that offensive line is helping as well. We're seeing Jarrett Gibson getting downhill very physically. That offensive line in one play was Cam Williams dragging him into the end zone. So, there's some football IQ in that regard as well. But to me, it's also just Quinn taking that leap. We wouldn't have seen a no-look touchdown pass in the red zone from Quinn Ewers at any time in his career at Texas. And yet we saw it game 1, and everybody's sitting there thinking, wait a minute here. If he's going to be doing this season, look out, right? It's a sign of maturation in my eyes. It's a sign of development and Quinn being confident with who he's throwing the football to and the situation that he's been put into. So it's, a combination of those three factors. But at the end of the day, I think it's Quinn Ewers taking that next leap and becoming that, red zone efficient quarterback that we were hoping to see, from day one, essentially.
I'm going to go one step further and add another element here. Better play calling from Sark. I go back to that throw at the end of the half against Michigan. Great play call. No matter what, you're going to at least kick a field goal there. If the timing's not right, it's out of it. No worry about an interception. I thought Sark has been better in the red zone. It's clear he took some time this offseason and kind of circled that as something that he wanted to improve as well. Guys, we have some recruiting stuff we want to talk about, as well as what the Longhorn lineup is even going to look like this coming weekend against ULM. Before we do that, I want to say thank you to our sponsor. Each and every stay of the program brought to you by our friend Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm. Thanks to Adam. Things like stay of the program, coffee and football, all made possible. Visit them at loweylawfirm.com. If you've been injured in a truck wreck, car wreck, automobile accident of any kind, including motorcycle or ATV, they've got more than 20 years of experience of helping injured Texans get the most that they are deserving of. He'll give you a free consultation, no strings attached. Again, loweylawfirm.com. Thanks, Adam, for your sponsorship. Gerry and CJ, if you're looking at it overall, what do you think the biggest factor of all of these keys to success that we've talked about, whether it's elite QB play, red zone efficiency, getting the ball to people in space and with speed, the offensive line, the defense being more opportunistic and versatile? What are the big keys to y'all's success right now about why Texas is ranked number one in the country?
I have two, and this is not taken away from a quarterback in year three or even an extremely talented redshirt freshman when he comes into the game. If you have a really good offensive line and your receivers are faster than everybody else's, you're damn hard to stop. Because if Sark has time for his plays to develop with two accurate quarterbacks, you're going to average over 30 points a game against good teams. And how many programs average 30 points a game against quality competition? So offensive line plus speed at receiver. If you give good quarterbacks time with that much speed at receiver and running backs that are involved in a passing game that are fast too, that's tough to stop in any level of football.
What about you, CJ?
Yeah, to your point, Gerry, Texas sits seventh in the country at 46.3 points per game. So they're doing something right, even going on the road to playing the defending national champs somewhere in that schedule as well. To me, what must maintain this year is the explosive plays defensively, right? The turnovers, I talked about them. You have 5 right now. You have a fumble recovery in there as well. You'd love to see the turnovers continue. Turnovers defensively can change a mediocre team into a good team. We saw it last year with Oklahoma, right? They were number one in the country in turnover takeaways. They're number one in the country right now in takeaways. They have 10 through 3 games. That's a good number. They haven't played a whole lot of talent, but that's a great number defensively. That will elevate your team, give your short fields to the offense, and allow that momentum to carry over. Texas has two per game. It's a good number. You want to see that more. You want to continue winning the turnover battle each game. That's a big point of emphasis. Texas lost it against UTSA, although it didn't matter a whole lot towards the end. But come SEC play, if you're able to take the ball away, give your offense short field, and really take hold of that momentum, it's going to play a long way. And right now, the playmakers for Texas are standing up. We talked about Jahdae Barron, Manny Muhammad, Andrew Makuba in that back end. They all have big plays to create turnovers up front. You see Colin Simmons getting after the quarterback. You see Anthony Hill flying sideline to sideline. If you're able to maintain this week to week, it won't matter what kind of rhythm your offense is in, because your defense will be the one carrying the way. And that's exactly what you want if you contend for a national championship.
Yeah, I tell you all what, I think that there's a lot of different pieces to this and why Texas has been successful thus far. CJ, I can see, and Gerry, I could see why y'all would say they've got to maintain their opportunism, I guess, on defense, CJ, or the idea that you have this offensive line and a stud quarterback or two behind center. Those are being long-term. I really think the thing that struck me outside of the red zone efficiency and just really taking and they're putting games away now, right? Michigan got put away because they scored touchdowns instead of field goals. Last year, they scored field goals in a couple of those situations instead of touchdowns. I think it's the speed factor, Gerry.
Yeah.
The offense is playing faster, even with losing two guys that ran sub 4.35 in the 40 at the combine. Okay, Texas's offense is playing faster and crisper earlier. I truly believe that. Whether that's elite quarterback play, the personnel they're using, I don't know. But the speed factor on offense and defense is different right now. And I think that is really attractive to the naked eye. And that's why Texas is ranked number 1 right now. They see guys running past Michigan defensive backs. They're like, that guy's fast, right? Yeah. They see running backs in the flat making angles, creating angles to the end zone. That's fast. And so I think that the key to long-term success may be those other things. I think that Texas is a really sexy team right now.
No doubt.
With speed, and that it also leads to their actual success on the field.
Can I throw a number we need to monitor out?
Yeah.
Because CJ's great with stats. I've actually got a good stat for once. So we need to monitor. Texas last year completed 66.7% of their passes as a team. Okay, now Malik Murphy wasn't the most accurate guy. Right now, Texas, if you just take Ewers and Manning, 74%. I'm just here to tell you, if Texas completes 70% of their passes on the season as a team with this offensive line and this speed, they're going to be really hard to beat. If you complete 70% of passes to these skill guys, you're going to average 30 a game in the SEC.
It's good stuff. All right. No, that's a good stat. Gerry,
how did I do? My stats. Not bad, right?
No, not bad. No, I saw CJ shaking his head yes on that. And CJ's the stats guru. All right. Let's fast forward a little bit to recruiting. We always try to take a little bit of time and stay the program and talk about that. Gerry and CJ, defensive line recruiting and DB recruiting are the two primaries. Gerry, talk about the defensive line recruiting, because it is daylight and dark difference just 3 months ago. I mean, I wrote about this, and I talked about it on Coffee and Football this morning. Look, June 28th, Texas, the Dauber was down for Texas D-line recruiting. They just lost Josiah Sharma and Myron Charles in a 3-hour window.
And Kevin Wynn not too long after.
Yeah, it looked bleak. And fast forward less than 3 months, they've cut commitments from both Sharma and Charles, and they've got some other guys lined up that are exceedingly good players. What has happened to create that momentum? Obviously the team, but there's other things going on behind the scenes too.
Yeah, so I think it's about 3 or 4 things. One, Kenny Baker got a late start. He came from the NFL. He hadn't evaluated all these guys. He hadn't been to these high schools seeing these guys. You got to remember, nowadays, you can go to a high school and actually do it. I call it an in-home visit, an in-school visit, and sit down with these guys. He never really had those chances. So he's just now fully evaluating the 2025 class. So naturally, you're going to be behind. So that's one. 2, I think Sark is, with the move to the SEC, there's a renewed emphasis on that position in recruiting. I would say different from prior years. I'm just being real. I'm always going to be real. I think there's a much more bigger emphasis on that. And the understanding of if you're going to recruit Florida, Georgia, and in these battles in the defensive line, I mean, this is not for the faint of heart. I jokingly say gird up your loins, but that's what it is. I mean, it's the most competitive position in recruiting in the SEC region is the defensive line. So you have to bring it. And I think the other thing is when Kenny Baker got to Texas, Tashard Choice was sitting there trying to work the Atlanta area by himself. Good luck with that. So now you have two guys there, right? Two guys in Florida because Kenny Baker at least coached at the Dolphins, and he may have dabbled down there when he's at Western Kentucky because all G5s recruit the state of Florida. You have to. So I think there's more help for Tashard Choice in some of those regions. Now, Jeff Banks has helped a little bit, but so I think you have guys. You have Kenny that's now settled and evaluating guys. I think Sark has taken a different approach. And I think in the states you have to hit, you now have two coaches recruiting those areas. Then it's easy to come in with your message of, Murphy, Sweat, and now we're ranked #1 in the country, beat Michigan. I do think that matters. And look, you have to be opportunistic. Texas was opportunistic when Mario Cristobal went to Miami. If you had just taken your B list of players, you wouldn't have been able to have the ability to be opportunistic. And this is the ultimate credit I always give Sark. The only way you're opportunistic is if you don't take the lesser players early. And after Sharma and Charles committed elsewhere, Texas could say, oh, my God, we got to get a couple of guys in the boat. They didn't do that. They stuck to their guns, and look what's happened at FSU's season. And Kevin Wynn's still on the table for Texas. They got to get him back on campus with his entire family. But you're having some success at Grayson with Joseph and Mbaktu. You're in late on a Walter Mathis, but he's coming to visit for the Mississippi State game, an LSU commitment, who I think is as good as any of them as a football player. You're winning at such a high level. You're even having conversations with Jakeem Stewart. I'm not saying it's going anywhere, but you have to be opportunistic. And Sark does a great job of taking advantage of those opportunities in recruiting. So I think it's all of it. Maybe the biggest thing I think we'll see moving forward, though, Kenny Baker didn't have time to establish relationships with kids, and it still does matter on some level. He's getting a better chance at that now with a product that's actually his.
It's a product that's his, and it's winning.
Yep.
I mean, that kids want to be part of winners. We just know that. I mean, that's why Florida State's having – it's not because their defensive line coach is all of a sudden a bad coach.
No.
It's because the program looks like it's in disarray in whole, and players want to be part of a winner. That's just a proven fact. CJ, what about the secondary right now at Texas? We look at it. Jonah Williams from Galveston Ball obviously committed. Caleb Chester out of Fort Bend Marshall, the corner. It doesn't look like Zealous Hicks is going to reclassify to 2025. We thought that might be possible. The latest defensive back commitment for the Longhorns out of Georgia. Where are we looking at right now in the secondary? And, is Texas possibly going to have to look in the portal? Or are they going to go what Gerry called it, deep sea fishing, quoting Sark? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought going back to what Gerry said there, credit to the Texas staff for not selling, at a loss in this class, right? You held on to your chips basically, and you waited out the storm and allowed other programs to kind of sink when you were still swimming quite up, up there at #1 or in the top 5 of the AP poll. You let your season do the talking. I think that's really going to be a point of emphasis again in the secondary when you look at where Texas has had flips as well. I mean, Xavier Filsaime around 2 weeks from now is when they actually started getting in contact with seriously a year ago. So you're going to see Texas stick to what they know, and that's not panicking. That's playing through the whistle. Of course, they're going to continue on with a number of guys like Kobe Sellers, Devin Sanchez, Dorian Brew. Just keep chipping away because you never know what might happen at Oregon or Ohio State or whatever. Of course, it's interesting to me as well with the secondary. How large of a class do you want, right? You'd love to continue to go out there and add 4 or 5 guys a class, but Texas had a great class in 2024. And I do think with the way that the portal presents itself, you're going to have plenty of options and guys wanting to come play for Texas because of the style that they play, the environment that they'll have. It's a preferable destination if you're a free agent in the world of college football with your pick of the litter to go to. So I think the portal is a viable option in this year, but don't be surprised if they're able to get one of those big guys back on campus later this year. It's all about sticking to it, and like we say, hanging around the rim because you never know what might happen with a coach somewhere, with a school somewhere else. Texas right now looks like it's going to be a constant near the top of the polls for this season and being a contender for the long run, as long as Arch Manning's here at Texas for the future and Steve Sarkisian and his staff remain in place at Texas.
Can I add one more thing that I think I'm not mentioning enough as much as CJ and I get out and talk to kids? Colin Simmons, Cedric Baxter, Jarrett Gibson, Zealous Hicks, Nick Brooks. I mean, I'm going to keep going. That Myron Charles. I mean, even though he's an FSU commitment, I can keep going on here. But Texas in the SEC. Think about what Texas was up against in the Big 12 in recruiting. How many, if you looked, how many of those guys would they not have gotten if they were still in the Big 12? They wouldn't have gotten Colin Simmons. I don't care about NIL and anything else. He was going to play in the SEC. Cedric Baxter was not going to come play running back in the Big 12. Jarrett Gibson, the same. Would Arch Manning have? No family members ever gone to a non-SEC school. It's big.
I get it. And I think here's what I would say as it relates to portal specifically. What are the two things that portal guys want? Or a couple, they obviously opportunity, but they want to go into a system that gets them ready for the NFL.
Yeah.
So Texas has proven that, right? I mean, come here, you get a chance to go to the NFL and NIL. NFL and NIL, as well as system. Nobody does that better than Texas. So I think they're going to be able to make hay in the portal at a position or two if they come up short in high school recruiting or need to bridge a gap that's left from previous recruiting classes. I think that's what they're going to be able to do. So we'll be on the lookout for that. But obviously the portal won't open until December. The recruiting timeline now has moved to the first Wednesday in December, I believe, is signing day now for high school players. Portal won't open for another couple weeks. All right, before we let everybody go, we need to give everybody an injury update. CJ, you wrote on Texas Football yesterday that Quinn Ewers was actually throwing up some warm-up balls on either Tuesday or Monday at practice, but not necessarily really letting it air out. Other injuries that we need to be aware of or anything like that? What's the latest on the injury front for the Longhorns as they head into Louisiana Monroe?
Yeah, with Quinn, it was more so just, warming the arm up. He wasn't taking drop backs. He wasn't full speed. He was in shorts and a T-shirt, just making sure that things felt right. And I think that's a part of the quote-unquote rehabilitation of that abdomen injury there for Ewers. Good sign, however. He's not completely shelved. He is getting active out there at practice and staying fit. I don't expect him to miss too much of a time. I do expect to see Arch Manning, as I believe we all do, this weekend against ULM. However, to the running back spot, it was Trey Wisner who was taken out of that game with a lower body injury. I believe they haven't been specific there. It did look like he got rolled up on at some point in that first quarter, played through it a little bit, and then was not able to go all the way through that game. He and Jaden Blue continue to be working through things right now. Blue was back on the practice field earlier today. And again, we mentioned it last week. If this game was in Oklahoma, Georgia, Texas A&M, you would have seen Blue out there at some point on Saturday. However, with it being UTSA and with Texas having the luxury of being in that part of its schedule right now where you don't necessarily need to push guys with injuries, he did not play. I do expect him to be a game time decision again. Just how much does Texas need him this weekend? I expect him to play. Trey Wisner, we'll see. He continues to be monitored. Sarkisian will give an official update Thursday ahead of that game. So coming tomorrow, we'll have a broader idea of who's ready and who will not be active for Saturday against ULM.
One thing I would add before we let people go here on this episode of On Texas Football, I would say this. It's not limited overall to, it's not just the guys that have known injuries. Texas could sit other guys. Just to rest them up and get ready for conference play next week. We'll see what that means. But my point being, there could be lingering issues that they want to let guys get rest. And we'll see if that's the case. Or I talked about this. I just think Sark sees this as a long season.
Yes.
I mean, it is going to be a long season. Like I mentioned earlier, Texas right now, 90% chance, according to FPI, of making the college football playoffs. We're talking maybe 15 to 16 games. That is not a small, that's an extra third of a season or a quarter of a season compared to your 12-game regular season. I mean, it's a significant amount. These guys are going to get nicked up throughout the year. So good on Sark, I think.
Just from a snap standpoint, a 16-game season, if you're lucky enough to play that, you're talking about 240 additional snaps, 240 to 250 on each side of the ball. That's significant.
Yeah, especially when you're already dealing with some injuries, right? At key positions like running back and quarterback. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of State of the Program. Thanks again to Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. Reach out to them if you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind. They do the most for their clients. 20-plus years of experience across the state of Texas. LowyLawFirm.com. Thanks, Adam, for your sponsorship. For Gerry Hamilton and CJ Vogel, I'm Bobby Burton. Thanks for watching this episode of State of the Program. Hook 'em.